I was halfway across the water when I heard the chainsaw. The sound ripped through the afternoon heat. Coming from my island. I pulled harder on the paddle, and that's when I saw them. 4 men in high-vis vests, tearing into my grandfather's cabin with power tools and crowbars. A woman in a beige blazer stood 20 feet back, clipboard in hand, orchestrating the destruction like a site foreman. Pamela Jennings, Homeowners Association president and self-appointed ruler of Coral Bay. My family had owned this 2-acre island since 1987, deeded and clear, but Pamela claimed a boundary amendment from 2019 brought it under HOA control. By the time my kayak hit the dock, half the cabin was rubble. Pamela turned, smile sharp as broken glass, and delivered the line that made my blood run cold. "You ignored our notices. Mr. Logan, this is on you." I pulled the phone from my pocket and started recording before my feet hit the sand. The chainsaw had gone quiet, replaced by the crack of splintering wood and men shouting instructions over the engine noise of a generator. My grandfather's cabin, the one he'd built with his own hands decades ago, was being systematically destroyed by people who had no right to be here. I kept the camera steady, panning across the scene. 4 men in yellow vests and hard hats, a motorboat tied to my dock. Pamela Jennings standing in the shade of a palm tree, clipboard tucked under one arm. She saw me coming and didn't flinch. I stopped 10 feet away. Phone raised. My voice came out calmer than I felt. "This is private property. You're trespassing. Stop immediately." One of the workers glanced at Pamela. She nodded once, and he shut off the saw. The sudden silence felt heavier than the noise. She stepped forward and spoke with practiced authority. "Mr. Logan, this structure violates HOA Coastal Zoning Code 14.3. We notified you twice via email. You ignored both warnings. We're authorized to remove non-compliant structures." I didn't lower the phone. "Your HOA has no jurisdiction here. This island's been in my family since '87. Her smile was thin. "The 2019 boundary amendment brought all coastal properties within 1,500 feet of the mainland under association control. Your island qualifies." The emails outlined the violation and the timeline for voluntary compliance. You chose not to respond. I could feel the anger building, but I'd learned a long time ago that losing your temper meant losing the argument. "I want to see that amendment. Public record, right?" Her expression flickered. Annoyance, maybe, or something closer to concern. "It's filed with the county. You can request it through proper channels." She turned to the workers. "Continue." The chainsaw roared back to life. I stood there as they tore through the last supporting beam, and the cabin folded in on itself. The metal roof buckled and hit the ground with a crash that sent gulls scattering from the mangroves. Pamela walked to the boat, without another word. I watched the motorboat cut across the water until it disappeared behind the mainland. The anger was still there, coiled tight in my chest, but underneath it was something colder, clarity. I sat down on the dock and called my father. He picked up on the second ring. "Dad, I need your advice. Now." His voice was steady, the same tone he'd used when I was 12 and called him from the principal's office. "What happened?" I told him. When I finished, there was a pause, no hesitation, calculation. "Do you still have Grandpa's old files? The deed, the plat map, anything from when he bought the island?" I stood, heading toward the small storage shed near the tree line. "They're in the garage, in that green footlocker he left me." "Good. Don't touch anything else on the island. Don't clean up. Leave it exactly how they left it. I'll be there by tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, file a police report, show them the video. And Logan," I stopped at the shed door. "Yeah, don't let her rattle you. People like Pamela Jennings count on you being too tired or too broke to fight back. You're neither." He hung up. I opened the footlocker 20 minutes later, kneeling on the concrete floor of my garage. The smell of old paper and salt air hit me immediately. Grandpa's handwriting on manila folders, survey maps, legal documents in plastic sleeves, and at the bottom, wrapped in a faded blue towel, a hand-drawn plat map from 1987. The corner was torn, a jagged rip that removed maybe a quarter of the page, but the boundaries were still visible. Clear property lines. My island, labeled in Grandpa's careful print. Beneath the map, a letter, handwritten on lined notebook paper, dated April '95. Logan, if you're reading this, someone's probably giving you trouble about the island. Don't let them. I fought for this place once. You might have to fight again. The deed is clean. The land is yours. Don't let anyone tell you different. Love. Grandpa. I sat back on my heels, studying both documents. Then I photographed everything and uploaded the files to 3 separate cloud accounts. By the time I was done, the sun was setting. I made one more call. Officer Ramirez met me at the Coral Bay substation an hour later. The community center smelled like burnt coffee and air conditioning that hadn't been serviced in years. I stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, watching Pamela Jennings command the front like she was born to it. 43 residents packed into folding chairs, most of them retirees who'd lived in Coral Bay longer than I'd been alive. Pamela sat at the head table with 2 other board members, a laptop open in front of her, a projector screen behind her showing the HOA logo in corporate blue. She started the meeting with financials, reserve fund balances, landscaping contracts, routine stuff that made people nod along. Then she clicked to the next slide, and my cabin appeared on the screen, or what was left of it. The image was taken from the water, angled to make the debris look worse than it was. The caption read, "Illegal structure removed, May 2024. Pamela's voice stayed smooth. As you can see, we successfully addressed a major compliance issue this week. The structure violated Coastal Zoning Code 14.3 and posed environmental risks. After multiple attempts to contact the owner, we exercised our authority under the 2019 Boundary Amendment. A few people shifted in their seats. I recognized Maria Garcia in the 3rd row, a 72-year-old woman who lived 2 streets over. Her hands were folded so tight, her knuckles had gone white. She wouldn't look up. Pamela continued. This brings me to an important reminder. Several properties in our community have similar compliance concerns. We've identified 3 households with potential violations. She clicked again. A new slide. 3 addresses. I knew all of them. Maria's house, Harold Miller's waterfront lot, the Sullivan's place near the marina. These issues range from unauthorized structures to non-compliant landscaping features. We're providing a 30-day grace period for voluntary correction. After that, we'll proceed with enforcement as outlined in our bylaws. Her tone stayed measured, almost gentle. We're not here to punish anyone. We're here to protect property values. If you cooperate, there's no problem. She tapped the gavel once. The sound was soft, but final. Questions? Maria raised her hand, fingers trembling slightly. What kind of structure are you talking about? I've had my garden shed since 1985. It was there before the HOA even existed. Her voice cracked on the last word. Pamela tilted her head, expression softening in a way that somehow made it worse. That's exactly the kind of issue we need to review. Maria, we'll send someone to assess it. If it meets current standards, you have nothing to worry about. Maria nodded, but I could see her shoulders curl inward, like she was trying to disappear. Harold Miller, a retired history teacher with a beard gone gray, spoke up from the left side. His voice was steady, no hesitation. Can we see the 2019 amendment you keep referencing? I don't recall voting on anything that expanded HOA jurisdiction. Pamela clicked her pen twice. It's available through the county clerk's office. Any resident can request a copy. Harold leaned forward slightly. I'm asking you to provide it now. Here. The challenge hung in the air. Pamela's smile stayed fixed, but her eyes went flat. I'm not in the habit of being interrogated at board meetings. Harold. The room fell quiet. That's when Pamela's eyes found me at the back. Mr. Logan, would you like to share how cooperation works, or perhaps explain why you chose to ignore our outreach? Every head turned. I kept my voice level. I'd like to see that amendment. Public record. Right should be easy to provide. Her fingers stilled on the pen. As I just said, it's filed with the county. You're welcome to retrieve it yourself. I plan to, but if it's legitimate, why not share it here with everyone? The silence stretched. One of the board members, a man in his 60s with a sun-damaged face, leaned toward Pamela and whispered something. She shook her head once. This isn't the time or place for personal grievances. Mr. Logan, follow proper procedures. She stood, closing the laptop. Meeting adjourned. The scrape of chairs filled the room as people stood, most of them avoiding eye contact with me or with each other. Maria caught my eye as she passed, mouthing, "Thank you," but her face was drawn, exhausted. Harold lingered near the door, waiting until most of the crowd had left before approaching me. "You're going to fight this," I nodded. "Already started." He glanced toward the front, where Pamela was packing her briefcase. When he looked back, his expression was certain, almost grim. Good. Because she's lying. I was at every meeting in 2019. There was no vote. No amendment. Nothing. He handed me a business card with his name and phone number written on the back in blue ink. I taught history for 40 years. I keep records. Call me. I slipped the card into my pocket and walked out into the parking lot. The Florida heat hit like a wall, but I barely felt it. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Landing tomorrow, 2 p.m. Bring everything." I texted back. "Will do." Then I opened my email and started drafting a message to the Monroe County Clerk's office. Subject line, Public Records Request. HOA Boundary Amendment, 2019. I hit send and got in my truck. Tomorrow. Things were going to start moving. The Monroe County Clerk's office smelled like old paper and floor wax. I arrived 15 minutes before they opened, standing outside in the shade with a notebook and the list I'd made the night before. 3 items. HOA boundary map from 2005, the 2019 amendment Pamela kept citing, and my grandfather's original deed, cross-referenced against current county records. When the doors unlocked at 8 a.m., I was the first one through. The woman behind the counter had gray hair pulled back in a bun and reading glasses on a beaded chain. Her name tag said, Linda. I handed her the request form I'd filled out online. "I need copies of these documents, property records and HOA filings for Coral Bay." She took the form, squinting at my handwriting, then looked up. "This'll take about 20 minutes. Have a seat." I sat in one of the plastic chairs near the window and opened my laptop. While I waited, I pulled up Florida Statute 720, the law governing homeowners associations. I'd read it twice already, but this time I was looking for something specific. Section 720.303, Powers and Duties of an Association. The language was dense, full of legal phrases that took 3 readings to parse, but the core was clear. An HOA could enforce rules within its jurisdiction, but only within its jurisdiction. Any expansion of boundaries required a recorded amendment, signed by the board, approved by a majority vote of homeowners, and filed with the county within 30 days. I took notes in the margin of my notebook. Recorded amendment. Majority vote. 30 days. If Pamela's amendment was real, it would have a paper trail. If it wasn't, she'd been operating on borrowed authority for 5 years. Linda called my name. I closed the laptop and walked back to the counter. She handed me a manila folder, thick enough to require a rubber band around the middle. "Everything you asked for. That'll be $18 for copies." I paid in cash and sat back down. The first document was my grandfather's deed, dated March 1987. The property description matched what I remembered from the plat map. Parcel 12, Lot 4, Coral Bay unincorporated area, 2.3 acres, island formation, accessible by private watercraft only. No mention of any HOA. That made sense. The HOA hadn't existed in '87. Next was the original boundary map from 2005, when the Coral Bay HOA was officially incorporated. I unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases on the table. The map showed the mainland and properties in blue, waterfront lots, residential streets, the community center and marina. Everything within a clearly marked perimeter. My island wasn't inside that perimeter. It wasn't even close. The boundary stopped at the high water mark on the western shore, a full 300 feet from my dock. I took a photo with my phone, zooming in on the measurements. Then I opened the last document. 19 Boundary Amendment. It was 2 pages, printed on standard copy paper, with the HOA letterhead at the top. The text was straightforward. Whereas the Board of Directors finds it necessary to expand jurisdictional boundaries to include all properties within 1,500 feet of the mainland and perimeter. This amendment hereby incorporates said properties, effective January 1st, 2020. 2 signatures at the bottom. Pamela Jennings, President. Thomas Harwick, Secretary. No other names. No vote tally. No meeting minutes attached. I read it twice. Then checked the filing date stamped in the corner. March 7th, 2019. 2 months after the supposed effective date. I pulled out my notebook and wrote down the discrepancies. No proof of homeowner vote. No meeting minutes. Late filing. Only 2 signatures instead of full board approval. I opened my laptop again and cross-referenced the statute. Florida law required a majority vote for boundary changes. This document had none of that. It wasn't an amendment. It was a memo. I closed the folder and stood. Linda looked up from her computer. Find what you needed. I nodded. Can I get a certified copy of the 2005 map official seal, dated? She raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. That'll be another $12. Take about 10 minutes. I paid and waited. When she handed me the certified copy in a protective sleeve, I felt the weight shift. This wasn't just evidence. This was leverage. I walked out into the parking lot and sat in my truck with the air conditioning blasting. Then I made 2 calls. The first was to Officer Ramirez. He answered on the 3rd ring. Ramirez. I kept it short. I've got the county records. Pamela's amendment doesn't match the legal requirements. No vote. No meeting minutes. Late filing. I'm bringing copies to the station this afternoon. There was a pause. How late? 2 months. He exhaled. Bring everything. I'll have Detective Brooks sit in. The second call was to Harold Miller. He picked up immediately, like he'd been waiting. Mr. Logan, I've got the maps. The 2005 boundary doesn't include my island, or your property, or Maria's. I heard him take a breath. I knew it. I knew she was lying. There's more. The amendment she's using isn't legitimate. No homeowner vote. I'm meeting with the police this afternoon. Can you come? He didn't hesitate. What time? 3 p.m. Coral Bay Substation. I'll be there. And Logan, I've got something you need to see. The original HOA charter from 2005. I kept my copy. I sat back in the seat, staring at the folder on the passenger side. The pieces were starting to fit. Pamela hadn't just overstepped. She'd fabricated authority she never had. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Landed early. Where are you? I texted back the address. 20 minutes later. His rental car pulled into the lot. He got out, tan duffel over one shoulder, and walked to my window. I handed him the folder through the open door. He read the first page in silence, then looked at me. She's in trouble. I nodded. Deep trouble. He smiled. It wasn't warm. Good. Let's bury her. Harold Miller's house sat 3 blocks from the water. A pale yellow bungalow with a screened porch and a dock that extended 40 feet into the bay. My father and I pulled up at 2:30, half an hour before the meeting with the police. Harold was waiting on the porch steps, a cardboard file box resting on his knees. He stood when he saw us, setting the box on a wicker table. I made introductions. Harold Miller, this is my father, James Hawk. They shook hands. Harold studied my father for a moment, taking in the military posture, the gray crew cut, the calm in his eyes. Navy. My father nodded. Retired. SEAL team. Then JAG Corps. Harold's expression shifted, something like relief. Good. We're going to need someone who knows how the system works. He opened the file box and pulled out a document bound with metal brads. The pages yellowed at the edges, but still intact. Original HOA Charter, 2005. Every founding member got a copy at the incorporation meeting. Most people threw theirs away or lost them in a move. I didn't. He handed it to my father, who set it on the table and started flipping through pages. I leaned over his shoulder, reading along. The first few pages were standard corporate language. Articles of incorporation, mission statement, board structure. Then we hit Section 3, jurisdictional boundaries and property exemptions. My father read it aloud, his voice even and deliberate. Section 3.2. Properties acquired prior to January 1st, 1990, shall remain outside HOA jurisdiction unless the owner files a voluntary opt-in form with the board and the county recorder's office. No assessments, rules, or enforcement actions shall apply to exempt properties without explicit written consent from the owner. He looked up at Harold. This is ironclad. Harold nodded. That clause was the only way they got enough votes to incorporate. A lot of the older residents didn't want some new organization telling them what to do with land they'd owned for decades. So the founders compromised. If you were here before 90, you were protected, unless you chose otherwise. I pulled out my notebook. My grandfather bought the island in '87. Maria's house is from '85. What about your dock? Harold smiled faintly. Lot purchased in '95. Dock built in '98. Technically, I'm inside HOA jurisdiction, but the dock predates the waterfront construction bylaw from 2000. It's grandfathered. My father scanned the next page. And Pamela knows this. Harold's smile disappeared. She has to. This charter was public record, filed with the county, posted on the HOA website until about 2 years ago. Then it vanished. I checked last month after she started making noise about my dock. The website only shows the amended bylaws from 2019. No original charter, no exemption clause. My father closed the document and looked at me. She's been systematically erasing the legal protections that would stop her. I felt the anger settle into something colder. Focus. How many properties are exempt under Section 3.2? Harold had the answer ready. 6. Your island, Maria's house, a couple on the north end who winter in Michigan, and 2 lots near the marina that got sold in 2022. The new owners probably don't even know they're protected. My father picked up the charter again, this time photographing each page with his phone. We need copies, multiple backups, and we need this authenticated. Harold pulled a folder from the bottom of the box. Already done. I had it notarized last week, right after Pamela put my address on that slideshow. Certified copy is in here, along with a signed affidavit confirming I received this at the incorporation meeting. He handed the folder to my father. I taught history for 40 years. Commander Hawk, I know how evidence works, and I know how people rewrite history when they think no one's watching. My father smiled, genuine this time. You're going to be a hell of a witness. We left Harold's house at 2:50 and drove to the substation in silence. My father kept the charter on his lap, one hand resting on the cover like he was guarding something valuable, which he was. When we walked into the station, Officer Ramirez was waiting in a conference room with a man in plain clothes. Detective Ryan Brooks, late 40s, solid build, the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter. He shook our hands and gestured to the table. Officer Ramirez briefed me. Let's see what you've got. My father laid out the documents one by one. The county boundary map from 2005, my grandfather's deed, the fraudulent amendment from 2019, and finally, the original HOA charter. Detective Brooks read through each page without speaking, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he sat back and looked at Ramirez. This is fraud, clear as day. Ramirez nodded. What about the destruction of Logan's property? Brooks tapped the deed. Criminal mischief. Minimum. Property damage over $1,000 is a third-degree felony. Add in the fact that she had no legal authority, and we're looking at trespassing. Possibly conspiracy if she coordinated with the crew. He turned to my father. You former JAG. My father nodded. 12 years. Brooks almost smiled. Then you know where this goes. We open a case, start pulling records, interview the board members who signed off on the demolition. If she's been extorting other residents like you say, we add those charges. He looked at me. You ready for this? Because once we move, it's going to get ugly. I didn't hesitate. I'm ready. My father leaned forward. One more thing, Detective. We think she's been deleting documents from the HOA website, covering her tracks. Can you subpoena the hosting company for archived versions? Brooks wrote something in his notepad. Already on my list. He stood, collecting the files. Give me 48 hours. I'll have warrants for her emails and financial records. In the meantime, don't confront her. Don't tip her off. Let her think she's winning. I shook his hand. Understood. We walked out into the late afternoon heat. My father glanced at me as we reached the truck. How are you holding up? I thought about it. The cabin was gone. My name had been dragged through the community. But I had the truth. And I had allies. I'm fine, I said. Better than fine. He clapped my shoulder. Good. Because tomorrow, we go on offense. The post went live at 9 p.m. I was sitting at my kitchen table reviewing Florida Statute 836 when my phone started buzzing. Text messages. 3. Then 5. Then a dozen in under 2 minutes. All from neighbors I barely knew. All saying the same thing. Check the community group. I opened the app and saw Pamela's post pinned at the top. Already with 64 comments. The headline was in bold. Resident threatens community safety. Legal action underway. Below it, a photo of me, taken from a distance, probably during the HOA meeting, cropped to make me look angry. The text was worse. Residents should be aware that Logan Hawk has escalated his dispute with the HOA into harassment and intimidation. After ignoring multiple compliance notices, he has now threatened board members and made unfounded accusations of fraud. We are consulting with legal counsel regarding defamation and potential restraining orders. If you see suspicious activity related to this individual, please report it immediately. Community safety is our top priority. I read it twice, then screenshot the entire post. The comments were already piling up. Half the people were asking questions. What exactly did he do? Can we see the notices? The other half had already made up their minds. This guy thinks he's above the rules. Typical entitled behavior. One commenter I recognized. A woman named Janet, who lived near the marina, wrote, I always thought there was something off about him. Maria Garcia had posted a reply. This is not true. Logan has been nothing but respectful. It had been deleted. Harold Miller posted next. Pamela, this is slander. Provide evidence or retract this immediately. Also deleted. My father walked into the kitchen, drawn by the sound of my phone vibrating continuously against the table. I handed it to him without a word. He read the post, his jaw tightening. When did this go up? I checked the timestamp. 17 minutes ago. He scrolled through the comments. She's trying to isolate you, turn the community against you before the investigation goes public. He handed the phone back. Call Detective Brooks. Now. I dialed. Brooks answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the late hour. Logan, what's wrong? I kept my voice level. Pamela just posted on the community page. She's accusing me of harassment and threatening legal action. It's defamation. Pure fabrication. There was a pause. I could hear him typing. Send me screenshots. Everything. The post, the comments, anything she deletes. This is witness intimidation. She's trying to discredit you before we move. I sent the files while we were still on the line. What do I do? Brooks exhaled. Nothing public. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let her dig the hole deeper. But document everything. If she contacts you directly, record it. If she shows up at your property, call 911 immediately. After I hung up, my father sat down across from me. We need to shift strategy. She's not waiting for us to build a case. She's going scorched earth. I nodded. What do you suggest? He pulled out his phone and opened his email. I'm sending a letter to every homeowner in Coral Bay, laying out the facts. The boundary map, the fraudulent amendment, the charter exemptions. We're not going to let her control the narrative." He started typing. I watched the words appear on the screen. Subject line, "The truth about HOA jurisdiction and your property rights." He wrote for 20 minutes, precise and methodical. When he finished, he turned the screen toward me. "Read it. Tell me if I missed anything." The letter was perfect, clinical, factual, and devastating. It cited Florida statutes by number. It attached photos of the county records. It listed the 6 exempt properties by address without naming owners. And it ended with a single line. "If you have questions about the legality of recent HOA actions, contact Detective Ryan Brooks at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office." I looked up. "Send it." He hit send at 9:45 p.m. Within minutes, replies started coming in. Some were grateful, some were confused, a few were hostile, accusing us of causing drama. But the message was out there, and Pamela couldn't delete it. At 10:30, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, the transcription appeared. It was Pamela. Her voice was tight, clipped. "Mr. Logan, you've just made a serious mistake. Spreading false information about the HOA is grounds for legal action. I suggest you retain an attorney. You're going to need one." I played the voicemail on speaker. My father listened, then smiled. "Save that. She just threatened you on a recorded line." I saved it and forwarded it to Detective Brooks with a 2-word message. "She called." His reply came back in under a minute. "Got it. Stay put tonight. I'm moving up the timeline." At 11 p.m., my father's phone rang. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up. "That was Brooks. He's executing search warrants tomorrow morning. Pamela's house, her office, and the HOA record storage. He wants us at the station at 8 a.m. I felt the exhaustion catching up, but underneath it was something else. Momentum. We were past the point of defense. This was an offense now. My father stood, heading toward the guest room. He stopped at the door and looked back. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." I nodded, but I didn't move. I sat at the table, staring at Pamela's post on my phone. The comments had climbed past 100. More people are defending me now. More people are questioning her. Harold had posted again, this time with a photo of the original charter. Section 3.2. Read it for yourselves. Someone replied, "Why was this removed from the website?" Another, "I never voted on any boundary change in 2019. The cracks were showing. I turned off my phone and went to bed. But before I closed my eyes, I checked the security camera I'd installed at Harold's house 3 days earlier, the one pointed at his front door. The feed was clear. If Pamela tried anything tonight, we'd have it on record. My father had been right about one thing. People like Pamela always make one mistake. They believed in their own authority. And when that authority was challenged, they panicked. Tomorrow, we'd see just how far she'd go to protect it. The emergency HOA meeting was called for 6 p.m., but the parking lot was already half full by 5:30. I pulled in with my father, spotting Harold's truck near the entrance and Maria's sedan 2 rows back. Through the community center windows, I could see people filling the chairs, more than I'd ever seen at a regular meeting. My father checked his phone. "Brooks is inside. Plain clothes. Back left corner." I nodded. We'd coordinated this morning at the station while Pamela's house was being searched. The warrants had turned up exactly what we needed. Deleted emails, financial records showing unreported payments, and a draft memo titled Boundary Expansion Strategy with notes in Pamela's handwriting. Brooks said it was enough. Now we just had to let her finish the job. We walked in at 5:50. Every seat was taken. People stood along the walls. I recognized faces from the neighborhood. Some friendly, most neutral. A few openly hostile. Pamela sat at the head table with her 2 board members, Thomas Harwick and a woman named Diane Moss. Pamela's expression was composed, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She knew something had shifted. She just didn't know how much. My father and I took positions near the back. Harold was in the third row, the original charter in a clear plastic sleeve on his lap. Maria sat beside him, hands folded, eyes forward. Pamela called the meeting to order at 6 sharp. Thank you all for coming on short notice. We've gathered tonight to address the misinformation campaign that's been circulating over the past 24 hours. False claims have been made about HOA authority, boundary amendments, and legal compliance. I want to set the record straight. She clicked her laptop. The projector screen lit up with a slide. HOA jurisdiction, the facts. She walked through her version. The 29th Amendment was legitimate. All properties within 1,500 feet were subject to HOA rules. Logan Hawks Island was non-compliant, and enforcement was justified. She spoke for 5 minutes without interruption. Then Harold raised his hand. Pamela ignored him. He stood anyway. Pamela, I have a question. Her smile was brittle. This isn't a Q&A session. Harold, please sit. He didn't sit. Did the membership vote on the 2019 boundary amendment? The room went quiet. Pamela's fingers tightened on the edge of the table. The board approved it in accordance with our authority under the bylaws. Harold took a step forward. That's not what I asked. Did the homeowners vote? Thomas Harwick leaned toward Pamela, whispering. She shook her head once. The board has the authority to make operational decisions without a general vote. Harold pulled out the charter. Not according to Section 7.4 of the original charter. Quote, any amendment affecting jurisdictional boundaries or member assessments requires a 2/3 vote of the general membership. He held up the document. This is the charter we all signed in 2005. It's notarized. It's on file with the county. And it says you needed a vote. Did you hold one? Pamela's face flushed. That charter was superseded by the 2019 revisions. Harold didn't blink. Show me the vote record for those revisions. Silence. My father stepped forward from the back, every head turned. He didn't raise his voice, but the room felt smaller when he spoke. My name is James Hawk. I'm Logan's father. Retired Navy. JAG Corps. I've spent the last 72 hours reviewing every document related to this HOA, and I can tell you with certainty that there was no membership vote in 2019. No meeting minutes. No recorded ballots. What there is, however, is a 2-page memo signed by 2 people and filed late with the county. He walked to the front, stopping 10 feet from Pamela. That's not an amendment. That's fraud. The murmur that went through the room was immediate. Pamela stood. You have no standing here. You're not a resident. My father smiled. I'm a witness, and so is Detective Ryan Brooks. He gestured to the back corner. Brooks stood, badge visible on his belt. The murmur turned into shocked silence. Brooks walked to the center aisle. Good evening. I'm Detective Ryan Brooks, Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Ms. Jennings, I'm here to inform you that we executed search warrants this morning on your residence and the HOA office. We've recovered financial records, correspondence, and deleted files that indicate multiple violations of Florida law. Pamela's face went pale. This is harassment, Brooks continued, unshaken. We've identified at least 4 residents who were extorted for payments not authorized by HOA bylaws. We've confirmed that the 2019 boundary amendment was never voted on by the membership, and we've found evidence that you systematically removed the original charter from public access to conceal property exemptions. He paused. You're under investigation for fraud, extortion, criminal mischief, and tampering with public records. You have the right to remain silent, but I strongly suggest you consult an attorney before this goes any further. Diane Moss stood abruptly. I didn't know. I signed what she told me to sign. I didn't know there was supposed to be a vote. Thomas Harwick's face had gone gray. He said nothing. Maria stood, her voice shaking but clear. She came to my house. She told me I had to pay $2,000 or she'd demolish my shed. I have the note she gave me. Handwritten. No receipt. I kept it because I was afraid. A woman in the front row turned to face Pamela. You told me my fence was non-compliant. You said I'd be fined $500. I paid it last year. Was that legal? The room erupted. People are shouting questions. Others are pulling out their phones. Pamela tried to speak, but her voice was drowned out. Brooks raised a hand. If anyone believes they were charged improperly by the HOA, contact my office. We're building a comprehensive case. He handed a stack of business cards to the nearest person. Pass these around. My father turned to the crowd. We've prepared a petition to remove Ms. Jennings from her position as board president. It requires 30 signatures. If you believe the HOA has overstepped its authority, sign it. If you believe leadership should be held accountable, sign it. Harold produced the petition, already printed and clipped to a board. People lined up immediately. Maria was first, then the woman with the fence, then a man I didn't recognize. Within 10 minutes, 38 people had signed. Pamela stood frozen at the front table, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. Brooks approached her. Ms. Jennings, you're not under arrest tonight, but you will be receiving a summons. I suggest you cooperate. He turned and walked out. The room began to empty. People stopped to shake my hand. Harold's hand. My father's hand. Maria hugged me, tears on her cheeks. Thank you. When the room was nearly empty, Pamela finally moved. She packed her laptop in silence, hands shaking, and walked to the door. She paused, looked back at me once. Her expression wasn't angry. It was hollow. Then she was gone. The conference room at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office smelled like burnt coffee. Documents covered every surface. Detective Brooks sat across from us with Elizabeth Foster, Assistant District Attorney. Her legal pad was covered in notes. Foster slid a spreadsheet across the table. HOA account activity from 2021 to present. Notice the highlighted entries. Payments marked compliance fees, with no invoices or board approvals. 4 residents. Amounts from $1,500 to $3,000. Total $9,500. None appeared in official budget reports filed with the county. Brooks tapped another document. We subpoenaed Pamela's personal bank records. Every payment was deposited into an account she opened in 2022, separate from HOA funds. Foster opened a folder of printed emails, recovered from her deleted files. The first was dated March 20th, 2019, from Pamela to Marcus Trent. Subject, partnership opportunity. Marcus, if we can acquire the Hawk Island property for under $50,000, your development plan becomes viable. I can facilitate through HOA enforcement. Standard commission. 20% of sale. Let me know. My father's jaw tightened. Brooks continued. Marcus Trent owns Trent Coastal Development. Been buying waterfront parcels for a resort project. We're investigating him separately. Foster flipped pages. This email's from last week, after Logan filed the report. She was weighing whether to sue you or buy you off. Neither happened because she ran out of time. My father pulled out his folder. I've got context. He laid out a screenshot of the HOA website from January 2023. Original charter posted. Section 3.2 visible. Exemption clause intact. He slid over another from August. Charter gone. Replaced with new bylaws. No exemption clause. No meeting minutes showing membership approval. Foster made notes. Digital concealment. Supports fraud. Brooks opened his laptop. Text messages with Thomas Harwick from 2 weeks ago. The screen showed one exchange. Pamela. Logan's making noise about the boundary. Do we have the original vote records? Thomas. I thought you had them. Pamela. They don't exist. The amendment was board action only. Don't mention that to anyone. Brooks closed the laptop. Harwick's cooperating. Full statement. Says Pamela told him it was routine. Didn't know it required a vote. Foster stacked documents. Criminal charges fraud. Embezzlement. Extortion. Criminal mischief. Tampering with records. Felonies. Multiple counts. Harwick gets immunity for testimony. Your cabin destruction is criminal mischief. $12,000 assessed value. 3rd-degree felony. You're entitled to restitution. My father leaned forward. Timeline, Foster answered. Arraignment in 2 weeks. Her attorney's trying to negotiate. We're not interested. This goes to trial." Brooks added, "HOA held an emergency vote last night. Pamela removed. Harold Miller, interim president. They adopted a transparency charter. Reinstated the exemption clause." Foster closed her folder. "We found 2 other HOAs where Pamela held board positions between 2010 and 2015. Reaching out to see if there's a pattern." Brooks stood. "You did good work. Logan." I shook his hand. "I had help." Outside. My father stopped at the truck. "How do you feel?" I thought about it. The anger was gone. "Like it's almost over." He nodded. "Your home. Your reputation. You've already won." We got in and drove back to Coral Bay. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Monroe County Courthouse. 3rd floor. Wood paneling and fluorescent lights. Pamela sat at the defense table in a navy suit. Her attorney beside her. Both of them silent as Judge Catherine Brennan reviewed the plea agreement. 4 months had passed since the emergency meeting. 4 months of depositions, paperwork, and waiting. My father sat next to me in the gallery. Harold and Maria were 2 rows back. The judge looked up. "Ms. Jennings, you've agreed to plead guilty to fraud, embezzlement, and criminal mischief. Do you understand the terms?" Pamela's voice was barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Brennan read from the document. "You are sentenced to 3 years in state prison. Suspended after 18 months with 5 years probation. You will pay restitution of $30,000, divided among the affected parties. You are permanently barred from holding any position in a homeowners association in the state of Florida. Your real estate license is revoked." She paused. "You abused a position of trust. You exploited your neighbors. The court will not tolerate that behavior." Pamela nodded, eyes down. The judge signed the order. "Bailiff, remand the defendant." I watched Pamela stand, wrists cuffed, and walk through the side door. No dramatic exit, no final words. Just a woman who'd gambled on authority she didn't have, and lost everything. Outside the courthouse, Maria hugged me. "I can sleep now." Harold shook my father's hand. "Thank you both. For all of it." We stood in the sun for a moment, then went our separate ways. The fight was over. 8 months later, I stood on the dock of my rebuilt cabin. The structure was bigger than the original, with solar panels on the roof and reinforced pilings that could handle hurricane winds. My father had flown down to help with the framing. Harold had brought over blueprints from his teaching days. Maria had insisted on making curtains. The HOA had changed, too. Harold stepped down after 6 months, replaced by a retired engineer named Paul Vickers, who ran meetings like clockwork. The new board published every decision online, held quarterly open forums, and restored the exemption clause to the front page of the website. 3 families who'd been quietly extorted by Pamela received full refunds. The Sullivans started teaching a monthly workshop on digital privacy. Attendance was standing room only. I sat on the dock, legs hanging over the water, and opened the letter that had arrived that morning. It was from the Florida Attorney General's office. "Dear Mr. Hawk, your complaint regarding HOA governance practices has led to a statewide review. Attached is a summary of proposed reforms." I skimmed the document. Mandatory transparency requirements. Independent audits for associations with over 50 units. Protections for whistleblowers. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Proud of you, son. Not just for winning. For standing." I texted back. "Couldn't have done it without you." I set the phone down and looked at the cabin. It wasn't just wood and nails. It was proof that the system worked when you made it work. Those rights meant nothing unless you defended them. That one person with evidence and patience could take down a tyrant with a clipboard. The sun was setting, painting the water gold. I sat there until dark, listening to the waves. Then I went inside, locked the door, and slept better than I had in years.